Guys. I'm here today, as promised, with Nichole Shepherd from Grow Well Bookkeeping, and she is my personal bookkeeper for my business. And Nichole, how long have I been your client? Over a year for sure, a year and a half.
Definitely. Yeah. I want to say it was right after like the start of the new year. I think we like February of
Yeah,
last year. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's been
So
a little while.
it has been a while. Time flies when you're having fun. So, one of the very few things that I've done right in my business and the way I've started my business was hiring Nichole. So, we're going to kind of just share a little bit today, and she is super knowledgeable and has a wealth of information that could really help a lot of you. I know that bookkeeping, especially for nurses, can be confusing, can be like the last thing. I don't know about anybody else, but it's kind of like an afterthought sometimes because we really don't know what we don't know. So I am just really excited to have you here today. Thank you for coming on. We're gonna just kind of have a natural conversation. If we have anybody who joins live, I see we have a couple people live. If you want to say hi in the chat, if we see any questions, we'll kind of answer those as we go, and we'll leave a few minutes at the end. But we're just gonna chat and see kind of uh, where the conversation goes and what questions there are. And Nichole's gonna share some tips with us.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that was actually a really awesome intro, Nina, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about is what bookkeeping typically looks like versus maybe a better approach to bookkeeping when you are an entrepreneur. And I wouldn't say this is exclusive to nurses by any
I
stretch of
believe
the
that.
imagination. I work with a lot of females. That's mainly my clientele. I kind of specialize in working with females, and I specialize in working with like coaches
Mm,
and online entrepreneurs in the sense. And I do find that it's very universal that people just don't. They are so good at what really awesome talents to start these businesses, but uh, oddly enough, like it's the numbers and business side of things that they often are like, okay, I really don't like that. I hated math in school. I hate bookkeeping stuff. Like,
yep,
it's
that's
scary.
pretty accurate.
Yeah. And so I really like to be able to feel like it shouldn't be scary because it really isn't. And I think a lot of that is our own mindsets, honestly.
Yeah.
Like so much of this is the stories we tell ourselves about how we aren't good at math, we aren't good at numbers, we're not capable, and that's just not true. And so a lot of times you just need somebody who can explain it in language that is understandable and not, the boring language, and you're a lot more capable than you think you are. So
One thing
um,
I did want to make sure everybody kind of understood was the kind of importance of having some type of plan. I'm not even saying you have to have a bookkeeper. Anybody who's in this group knows that I'm like start out for free, get a Gmail and a Calendly link, and that's all you need.
mhm.
There's free Wave accounting software, you could start out with, but but just a little peek into my story and why I hired Nichole
Mhm.
is that I realized when I got my first client as a consultant and um, started having transactions coming in and out that were business related, even just from my first big client, I had quite a few transactions that I felt like, okay, um, I'm not really managing these well. I've missed a lot of things that were business related that I didn't record, right?
Mhm.
So, for me, I went and I hired a bookkeeper, my first bookkeeper, for $75 a month. I think I found her um, in a Facebook group or a small business group, and I had her for about 6 months before I um, hired Nichole, and she was lovely, super sweet. Um, but it was not her full-time business. She had a full-time job, and I I don't really know what I was supposed to be getting. So I think I got like one report in the 6 months. that had a couple transactions in it. Like, it was a spreadsheet, and it had a couple transactions from Wave. So I went in and I categorized those, and I'm like, well, I thought I kind of had more transactions than this. And so it kind of got to that awkward point where it's like, okay, I know I went back and I'm like, what should I be getting? Right? What did our email agreement say? What did I agree to? Went back, and what I agreed to was a monthly report of transactions, a monthly report of, P&L, or profit and loss, or income and outgo. And I would go into Wave and look, and my transactions were not categorized. And so at about the fifth month, I said, hey, I'm not seeing some of the things that I'm looking for, and some of the things that we talked about. And I'm just wondering, like, hey, what's going on, And she said, oh, I've been working extra and I just haven't had time. And I said, well, I am paying for it. I have paid $75 every month for the last 6 months, and I haven't gotten really the service. And so I ended up just telling her, like, I feel like I need to go in a different direction right now. And I never want to hurt anybody's feelings. I never want to say, you're not doing your job, because I knew I wasn't managing the transactions. And I don't know about anybody else in the group, but I used to be a director of nursing. And if you asked me if something was done, that was supposed to be done every week, if it was a report, I may not have gotten to it for 6 months, and that would not be strange at all. So, I'm not here to judge her, but we ended up going our different ways. And that is when I hired you, Nichole, because I knew that I needed something more than
Mhm.
what I was
Yes.
getting.
Yep. Yes. And that's a really key point to consider when you get to that point that you're ready to outsource. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about when that might be good, anyways. But the point, a lot of people think when they're outsourcing, they're doing it just because they want numbers at the end of the year for tax purposes, to make sure they're getting all their tax deductions, make sure that they've got everything organized for a CPA, or if they're doing their own taxes or whatever. But there's so much more to it. And really, when you're hiring a bookkeeper, you're hiring someone who should be able to give you reports and give you insight on your business on like a monthly basis. So you can make decisions about, how are your marketing expenses going? How are your, continuing education? Like, are you paying yourself enough? Are you paying yourself too much? Like, you should be able to have that readily available to you on a monthly basis, because it really is just so much more than the tax piece at the one time end of the year situation. So that is an important piece, is having information regularly, not just 6 months
Yeah,
when
that's
they decide to
that's
just
been
show you that
huge,
they've been doing something, or whatever.
huge.
Yes.
So maybe you want to tell them kind of a little bit about the basics of bookkeeping for business, what they should
Yep.
expect, what
Yep.
they can do to start themselves if they're not ready to outsource.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I've got a handy little presentation just to kind of keep
Love it.
myself organized in like my talking points.
Yep,
So hopefully that helps everybody else. And I think some people are visual learners even more
for
than just
sure.
audible learners. So, this can be helpful. But anyways, just a little thing to just first of all say thanks for taking time to be here, because really, I feel like the part of our business that tends to get the most attention is the part that's making money.
Yeah.
Obviously, like working with the clients, trying to find clients, like growing, that piece of it gets a lot of attention, just sheer fact that we're drawn to make money in our business, and that's why we do it. But the less like glamorous side of things, like bookkeeping, probably don't always get the attention they need in the beginning. Like you were saying, Nina, a lot of people kind of do it a little backwards. And so I applaud you for just taking the time to be here and do this for your business, because honestly, those plants that are going to grow strong are going to start with a lot of nourishing when they're little, not like they grow and then all of a sudden, oh, now we got to like fix everything. That is how usually it goes, but that is not anywhere near like the best way for thriving business to develop.
Well, and
So,
I think there's like resistance sometimes to spending money or committing to something. I mean, even when I was like, okay, I didn't even want to spend the $75. So when I'm like, okay, how do I need to add this expense to my business? There's this fear that if I commit to this, this is a tattoo that I'm going to have on my body forever, type of thing. And it's like, well,
Sure.
this is an investment into your business. This is an investment into your growth. I mean,
Mhm.
that's really it should be exciting. It should be something that you're proud of yourself for doing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And there are going to be those necessary expenses in the front end, and I know when people first start, that's the scariest part, because when
Yeah.
you don't have a lot coming in, it's really hard to invest in your business going out. But um I always like to tell people to remember too that, there are places that you can keep expenses minimal, and I'm actually going to give you some pointers of ways you can even keep your bookkeeping expenses lower in the beginning while you don't have a lot coming in. But if you were to go out and buy, a Subway, or if you were to open some other kind of business, like, the front end costs would be enormous to
Yeah.
start those things.
Yeah.
And I think luxury of these online businesses of really keeping the initial expenses low, but it's almost to the point where it's like unrealistically low,
Right.
because there are going to
Too
be
low.
startup costs, and you
Yeah.
do need to be like, you definitely should be like capturing those for tax purposes, because those are going to be deductions in the back end taxes. But there are going to be things you're going to have to spend some money on, right?
Mhm.
And I think being a little realistic about, not always going the cheapest route, because honestly, you get what you pay for in a lot of times.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about, like, this is the one thing I want to say. Most people avoid this piece because, one, yes, they don't want to spend money because they don't have a lot coming in, and two, because there's this huge misconception that, you have to be an accountant to understand how to do bookkeeping, and that's just ridiculous. Like, the
Right.
idea that there's a should of what your bookkeeping should look like is really a fallacy. There's When you first start out, like, hey, we're going with spreadsheets, we're just making lists of things. I put together just this little slide that can kind of give you some categories of things that you're going to want to be tracking from the get-go. But that's okay. Like, that's all it really needs to be. You don't, I wouldn't even say you have to hire a bookkeeper right from the beginning. Like, do people hire bookkeepers from the beginning? Yes. Like, I have clients currently who don't, who hired me before they even started selling anything, just because they knew that that was a piece they wanted to have in place. But is it absolutely necessary? No.
Right.
And so, really, spreadsheets are perfectly fine when you're first starting, but the key is tracking those things, right?
Yeah.
Because um, what otherwise ends up happening is you kind of have a big mess come tax time, when you're like, oh, I knew I should have did this from the beginning.
Yep.
So um, it's really simple. Get yourself some kind of Excel spreadsheet that you're going to record all your income. You can even categorize, like, what the different categories are for your income coming in if you want. Um, Operating expenses, obviously, is like anything you have to spend to operate your business, right? Like supplies, um, continuing education pieces. Like, if you're hiring out a coach to coach, if you're buying, spreadsheets to do your bookkeeping on, like, anything that you're buying for your business, those are all operating expenses that you want to be capturing as they happen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it is a lot of digging through bank statements and trying to remember, oh gosh, where did I buy that? Like, I don't even, you come to the end of the year and it's just a frazzled mess because you can't remember. You're like, I know I've spent stuff, but I don't know where it is, or I have to go dig for it. So having that list is super helpful. Owner's pay, I put this here because, let's be honest, most people are scared to death to pay themselves when they
Yeah.
first start their business.
Yep.
And I think,
Great.
Nina, you would even be able to attest to, like, it's burnout real fast when you start
Yeah.
to think like your business isn't making any money, right?
That is literally one of the first things when I'm coaching someone who already has clients and they're not, there's a couple different phases of business that I coach nurses in. And when I'm talking to a nurse who's making money already, that is the first thing I say. One of my clients was making almost six figures and hadn't paid herself a dime. And I'm like, at some point, you're going to want to leave your job, right? Is that why you have this business? Yes. Okay, then you have to pay yourself something. So I would always recommend that no matter what's coming in, you start out, I do the profit first method for the most part. We've kind of got our own system going on for that, but it's the core of the profit first, where no matter what, you pay yourself. No matter what, there's a percentage that you give to yourself, even if that's a very small percent. You
Mhm.
really want to start out your business right, with a foundation that's going to be sustainable. And if you don't pay yourself, there's not a sustainable business there. You're volunteering. You could go volunteer in the community if you
Mhm.
want to volunteer, with a lot less work and input on your side. So you've got to pay yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. And, it really, like you said, it could be a very small amount, but just getting into that habit. I know some people sometimes ask, one of the questions I get from viewers is like, does it have to be like payroll? I've heard there's payroll that you have to pay yourself. No, absolutely not. You don't have to start with payroll. That's down the road. Like, just all it is just pulling money out of your business, like literally
Right.
making a transfer to a personal account. Um, that's all you got to do. that's a that's paying yourself when you're just in as an LLC. That's totally legitimate. So,
And I don't want to step on your toes if you're going to cover this, but one thing she just said that I think is really important, even if you're just starting out, is to open a business account and not be using your personal account.
mhm.
And really, if there's one area I would suggest you to be disciplined in, it would be to not take money out of your personal account, use your personal debit card or personal credit cards to fund your business.
Yes, fabulous. Yes, you are leading right into my next point. So thank you.
Awesome.
That is
Perfect.
awesome.
I did that
Yes,
on purpose.
because that is a big issue, and that is typically how it started for most people. So just to wrap this up, owner's investment would be anything that you have put on personal cards, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But what ends up happening is, in the beginning, a lot of people are, um, funding their business with personal money because they don't have business money,
Right.
right? So, operating, I would ideally here put things that are coming out of your business that you're paying for with your business. And then your owner's investment could be anything paid for outside of those business accounts. Anything that was in a personal credit card, personal, checking account, anything, like, you should be keeping track of those, because that is part of the tax piece. In the end of the year, it kind of offsets the amount of money you've pulled out of your business, by the money that you've put into your business. And that's what we call that. That's investing in your business, when you're taking money that's personal and putting it to pay for things in your business. So they kind of offset each other, and that's an important piece. So you want to be any startup costs, any of that stuff, right from the get.
Yeah.
And then finally, I put this in a little star because I'm sure most of you have heard that the benefit of having like a home office situation is that you get to take great deductions on your taxes, but you do have to track those. And as kind of a bonus of being here today, I have a I'm going to drop at the end that tracks your home office expenses and mileage, if that's a thing for you. I prefer it to be on its own separate spreadsheet, only because when you get into, like, say, software down the road, and things are really getting good at like separating out business from home office expenses, tend to be kind of like a 50-50 situation, right? Like, half your internet is being used for home and half is used for business, phone, electricity, like only a small part of your house is the home office. And so it's ideal to have a spreadsheet that's like, these are kind of the personal slash business, because those aren't going to run through your business. You shouldn't be paying your mortgage with your business checking, because really probably only about 10% of your house is deductible for your office. You can't deduct all of that mortgage. That shouldn't be really going through your business, but you still want to deduct that 10%. So you want to
Yeah,
capture
absolutely.
mortgage so that you can deduct that at the end. So that's why I kind of set that aside as a separate spreadsheet from your business. Like I said, I have a free one for you that you guys can start using now, so that, just get in the habit of recording those personal slash business expenses, that you want to make sure you're getting deductions for. Okay. Okay. So we kind of covered some of this, but yeah, typical progression looks like you start out, you've got lots of expenses, not a lot of income. So you're like, I don't even have income to track. So why would I do bookkeeping? And it's like, well, you're not just tracking the income, you're tracking the expenses. Those are actually probably the more important
Right.
piece of this. You want to bring your income down. You don't want to just have a ton of income that you have to report and pay taxes on. You want expenses to take out of that income so that your bottom line is much lower, a lot less tax at the end. So yeah, you usually start lots of expenses. You don't really think about it. Maybe you're like, I kind of jotting things down, but no organized plan. Then the income starts coming in, and then you're like, well, I gotta like get this under control, right? And so, but it's a little overwhelming once money starts flowing and you're like getting into it. I just find that it's harder to backtrack and put that plan in place because it's just like, when is there? And finally, the good time becomes, end of March, when you're like, I have like 15 days to get my act together. And then it's cram session, and then you're like trying to find statements, and you're trying to like find these things. Then you'll move on to where like you start realizing like, this is not realistic to be manually stuff on spreadsheets anymore.
Right.
Like, you'll get to a point where it's like, this is just too much. I need something that's going to pull those transactions in automatically, like that I don't have to be like writing everything down. And then you're going to be ready for software. But now there's like a learning curve for software, picking it out and figuring out how to get in it and use it. There's a bit of a curve, and that can be overwhelming when you're focusing on, things really popping in your business. And then finally, what ends up happening is you kind of dump it. Like, you'll just be like, I just need to hire somebody. I don't even want to I don't have time for this. But I have to figure it out. So you hire somebody, and you end up with a very hands-off approach to like your bookkeeping, where most people that have done that kind of are like, she just does it, and I don't really know what she does, but I don't even know if I know how to read the reports, but or stuck in a place where you just don't know what you're supposed to be doing with that information even. So that's typical. I would love to suggest a better approach that I've seen for a lot of people. And that looks more like you were saying, Nina, right from the bat, you want to separate things out. Okay, this is going to be a huge time saver when it comes to like starting software and things like that, because now everything that is happening in your business is happening in a business. And some people even start out without, say, an LLC. They're just like a sole proprietorship, and
Right.
they want to get an LLC down the road.
Yeah.
That's okay. You can start out with a personal banking account that is only designated for business. And then
Right.
when you go to like apply at the bank for like a business aligned with your LLC name, just transfer that money over. That's totally
Yeah.
fine. But the key is just have designated accounts for business only, and designated credit cards for business only. Can it be a personal card? Yes. If you don't want to apply for a business credit card yet, totally fine. Just make that credit card business only that you already have. And, then you just have like a capture spot of everything happening. And there's none of this like, oh, what did I spend here? Where did I spend that? Like, how did I, whatever. So that's that. I would say number one, first thing you should do is do that. Two would be, come up with a little plan for your spreadsheets, gathering, somewhere. It's going and finding them online. People make spreadsheets online. You go to Etsy, find something really cute. You can make your own, do whatever. Get your spreadsheets in order and start just that plan of like, I'm going to record everything that I'm spending just to get in that habit. Then the next approach I would say is get into software sooner. I think a lot of people are, again, like, I don't want to spend $30 a month on software because I don't have a lot coming in, but it's hard to set the time aside to like learn to move everything over when you're in the midst of like things really moving for your business. So I would say, yeah, you can get a really great functionality in like something like QuickBooks online for $30 a month. That's pretty reasonable for a software. And if you have time now to learn it, they have a gazillion free tutorials online that you can use to learn the software before you've got a ton of things to even enter in the software. That's really helpful because then it's just not overwhelming. Or, not to like plug myself, but I do offer trainings for that very thing. I work with a lot of newer entrepreneurs who want to learn software, want to understand that they're doing their bookkeeping right. And so I know there's other coaches out there too. People just to skip that learning curve and say, here, I'll just teach you everything you need to know. I'll help you practice. You can be comfortable moving forward and just make it a lot simpler process. So,
And I just want to say really quick, in hindsight, I really think it would have been worth paying the extra. I was really resistant to paying for QuickBooks. I'm just being honest. I wanted to start up everything free that I
Right.
could.
Yes, you were in
That's
free
the
software.
advice. That's the advice that I give, is to start up free if you can. I did the spreadsheets, and unless you're like really into spreadsheets and just love Excel, that is really a painful process. Number one. And number two, I moved to Wave, which is free. It's the same thing as QuickBooks, but a free version. And it's ultimately the same as doing it manually because it doesn't think for you, whereas QuickBooks does. And I'm
Yep.
sure there's a lot of other softwares that like Zero, I
Mhm.
think is one, or FreshBooks, or there's a lot of, I'm not even plugging QuickBooks. I'm just saying,
Mhm.
ultimately, the way that I did it and being resistant to QuickBooks for over a year or almost a year just ended up costing me more work and more money, because Nichole went in. I think the first thing I actually paid Nichole for was a cleanup.
Clean
And
it
it,
up.
and it
Mhm.
was a
Yep.
hefty cleanup. It was not a small cleanup. It
Yeah.
was, I'm sure, hours and hours of work, because I went from a spreadsheet to a free software that didn't categorize anything, and then am moving into a paid software, and that created hours of rework, costed me extra money than just paying 30 bucks a month and having it all ready to go would have been ultimately a lot a lot probably neater of a process.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I would
Especially,
agree. And the value too is that if you are setting up, if the first time you're working is when you hire a bookkeeper, you tend to, again, kind of default to that very hands off. But I really encourage, I mean, I am a full time bookkeeper, and yet I encourage people to say, like, the best thing you can do for your business is learn to use the software and DIY your bookkeeping for a little while. Because then, when you go to hire out, you know what you need. You know the process. You kind of know a little bit more about what you're looking for. It's just a lot smoother. And you're going to avoid a lot of pitfalls that way. So I really highly encourage that for anybody who can and is willing to get in there and do that. It's just really valuable for someone to learn to DIY their own business bookkeeping and kind of understand what's happening, instead of just being like, hey, you deal with it. It's not my. So, that is totally available. Just putting that out there, that you can definitely learn how to DIY it with some help if that's something you feel like would be valuable. But then ultimately outsourcing, like, there's going to come a time where you make more money by doing your business than you do doing your bookkeeping. And so, when that time comes, definitely I'd consider outsourcing. And do you have to? No. There's a lot of people I know that love to do their own bookkeeping, but you can outsource, and then, focus on other things. And that's great. But just a couple tips when it comes to that time, because I do feel like it's good to kind of know what you're looking for. And I've met plenty of people who can tell me what they didn't have happening that was frustrating. So I would say, first of all, meet your bookkeeper, like, have a Zoom call with them, find out if they work well with you, because you really should be approaching this as like a team member sort of situation, not just something you're dumping a part of your business that you don't want to deal with on. They should be a team member. And so it should be someone you feel like, yeah, like, I jive with this person. I can work with them. Read the client reviews. Do they have a website? Do the research. Like, most people that are, quality bookkeeper are going to have those resources set up. Then, considering, do they work with someone in your business? Because, I purposely like niche down in a certain area because I want to feel 100% confident that I can give my clients the best experience bookkeeping in that area, because I deal with it all day long with all kinds of people in this area, and I can give you insights and ways of doing your reports that are going to be the most helpful to your business. So there's a lot of bookkeepers that niche down in different areas that way. So look for those people. Um, Communication, like you were saying, Nina, I'd say first thing I would ask them is like, hey, Kate, how often are you going to communicate? Do you have a way, like, where's the back and forth? Because there's a lot of back and forth when you hire out, right? Because a bookkeeper has no idea what you bought at Target. Or when Venmo comes through, we have no idea where the Venmo went. It just says Venmo. There's going to be a lot of that back and forth. How are they going to communicate with you to make it a smooth process, that it's not, painful for you, and at the same time you feel like you're not chasing people down for stuff? And then finally, just pricing. I think I said that before, but I get it. It's a business expense. That's why I sometimes say wait until you're in a place where you feel comfortable to hire that out. But what would you pay someone to do that? That's what I like to say. Like, what is this? What is the value of this to you in your business by having someone do this? Because I think people that value their craft are also going to ask to be paid in a way that makes them feel valued. So that can be a good indicator of it based on what you're asking for. So, all right. Final thing is just I remind people to take a view of their whole business. Again, going back to that idea that it's really easy to focus on like the little town here because that's where everything's happening. That's where everything's like feels like it's like exciting and spending, making money and all of those things. But there's a bigger view for your business, and that is the things like the bookkeeping and being the owner of your business, right? Not just the operator of your business, but the two really can't exist individually. If you're not doing the owner pieces where you're learning what you need to do and spending the time on those things, the operator won't have a job to operate. So I just remind people that that's an important piece. So I think that's about everything. Like I said, I have the little gift of the free spreadsheet that I can drop. I'm going to try and drop it in the chat, Nina.
Yeah, go
I'm
for
thinking
it.
that would work because people should be able just to download it. It's like
Yep.
and then if for some reason they can't, they can always just email me at my Nichole at growwellbk.com for Grow Well Bookkeeping, and I can email it to them if they need
Yep.
it.
I'm going to type your email right here in the chat as well, in case, because when we end, they will still be able to see it. So
Perfect. So let me see if I can. Okay, I got to figure out how to get into the chat here. How do I even
there
get
should
into
be a
the
little box.
I see a
You're
private chat.
welcome.
Is that what you want?
Yeah. No, that private chat is with me.
Oh.
If you go into that little, there's on the
So
right side, there should be an R, or I can,
very helpful. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that was helpful.
yeah. Nichole, if you put it in the private chat, I can put it in the group chat.
Awesome. Let's go
Put
back
it to
out. So
me,
let
give
me
it
put
to
it
me.
in
I'll
here.
drop it in there for you. But yeah, guys, I would say if you have regular expenses and regular income, if you have a current client, at that point that you have a regular income of any kind coming in, I highly recommend getting a bookkeeper. I obviously highly recommend Nichole. She has been a great partner, a great teammate for me, has really been very patient with me as I worked through really a big mess with my taxes. And long story short, like I had a really rough tax year last year. I paid all of my estimated tax coupons that they sent me. I thought everything was good, and it wasn't. I ended up owing a lot of money, and I actually at that point called Nichole or emailed Nichole and said, "Hey, I just found out I owe 5 figures from my taxes, and I just can't keep you on, and it's an expense I can't maintain. I owe all this money." And I really was very distraught about the whole tax situation, wanted to give up, was like, I just can't, this is too much. And I talked to some of my mentors, some of my coaches, and every single one of them said, Nina, this is business. This is everybody. I talked to my accountant. My accountant said, this is business. This happens to everybody. Like, seriously. So, I emailed her back and said, if there's any expense that I should be paying, it should be for a bookkeeper at this point, right? If I have this tax situation that I really need to clean up very aggressively and work through and make sure I'm capturing all these expenses, the only thing I really need is a bookkeeper at this point. So she was really patient and worked through that with me. I highly recommend if you're making money and you have expenses that are regularly accumulating, that you add a bookkeeper. It's worth the value, and it will save you so much time and money in the end. Um, if you follow my pricing guide for consulting and coaching, it's very affordable to have a bookkeeper. And if you spend any amount of time working on it yourself, you're wasting money that you could be putting towards clients and lead generation and building your business and making income. So it's a no-brainer for me. Um, Nichole, you got it. You got it to attach.
I did. We'll see if that works. I'm a little nervous that that might not work. We'll see what happens.
All right. This is supposed to.
It wasn't exactly. Is it working if you try and edit it though? Did you try and open it?
I'm afraid if I try and open it, it'll take me out of our live stream, but we'll see.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
so if
It
for
works.
some reason it doesn't let people edit it, I think then you just might need to email me because it should have been editable, but the way I was going to do it wasn't working. So I tried a different way, and it might
If
just
you
come in saying
download it, it should let you edit it, right?
it should. It should. I think it should come in just as like an Excel spreadsheet. If it's anything, but that's what I'm not totally sure. So we'll see.
No, it works.
Okay, but
Yeah.
can you edit it?
Yeah.
Oh,
It
you
works.
can. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
Do I need to
Yay.
save as before I edit it? Is it a
You might
shared
want to
file?
save a copy of it. Yeah, you might want to save
Okay.
a
So
copy for
save a
yourself
copy
of
when you
it.
download it.
Yes. Yes. So,
All right. Well, thank you
um,
for that. That is a great spreadsheet.
no problem.
All right. Well, thanks, Nichole. I really appreciate your time today. Do we have any questions that I missed in the chat? Anybody have a question for Nichole while we've got her on live before we wrap up here? Question about bookkeeping, a question about how to record transactions, any questions that we didn't cover today that you have burning in your mind about bookkeeping? And make sure you follow Nichole, connect with her on Instagram, Facebook, and we'll definitely have her back again. We'll put this video in the guides section. We have a lot of free workshops that we've got in the guides for you guys. So it will live there if you want to come back and watch it, if you want to come back and get that spreadsheet. But I would definitely recommend implementing some type of system so that your business can really thrive and grow. So thank you so much, Nichole. This was great, and really appreciate your time and making that spreadsheet for us, and really looking forward to our long continued relationship of me forgetting to categorize transactions correctly.
Love it. Love
All
it. Yeah.
right.
No, thank you so much, Nina, for having me. I look forward to being able to share deeper info, but I do hope that this is helpful for anyone who's just like,
Yeah,
I'm lost. I don't even know where to start. This is a good
super
start. Go get
helpful.
those separate accounts set up and find some little plan on some kind of spreadsheet somewhere. It doesn't have to be fancy, but yeah,
Awesome.
just get those things written down.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk